I'm Peter. Welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, where we take the mystery out of the tarot and help you bring this ancient practice into everyday life. In this podcast, we'll talk about life, tarot, and everything in between. So grab your tarot deck, get comfortable, and start your journey to tarot with Bonnie and Peter. Hi, everyone. I'm Peter, and welcome to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter. This is actually our last episode of 2024, and we thought it would be a great time to talk about how we use the tarot to welcome in the new year. So we've just passed, I guess the winter equinox, the winter solstice if we're here in the Northern Hemisphere, summer one if we're in the South. So we've got the idea of growing light happening now. We might not, think about that, but that idea of growth is happening in spaces now that we've passed that solstice period. We're getting a minute or two more of sunlight every day. We follow a Gregorian calendar, which tells us that, the new calendar year is coming up as well. Everybody does resolutions or intentions around this time. So, why not jump into all of that new year resolution and planning, and let's add the tarot to the mix and use the tarot to do that. So in this episode, we're going to talk about pulling cards intentionally to sort of help us welcome the new year. Bonnie and I are each going to share our favorite spreads to use at this time of the new year as well. And then, of course, we're going to do as we've always done. We're going to shuffle up and each draw a card. So, Bonnie, you want to start us off? I was going to say happy holidays to you, by the way.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. And do you want to start us off with how, cards that you might intentionally draw?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is a really exciting time of year. It is a really special time for new beginnings. So there's so much energy in the air. If you think about everybody's sort of thinking about something new, wanting to start something new, that energy is really, really strong right now. So it's a really great time to pull cards intentionally, to help you embody that energy and to sort of move you into the new year. So this one is really broad because depending on what it is that you want to welcome into your life for 2025 might determine the type of energy that you want to get from the card that you want to intentionally pull. So I think what Peter and I are probably going to do is give you some ideas on cards that really help with the idea of new beginnings or being at that starting point or getting some inspiration. Of course, you can pull any card you want from the deck that's going to help you, but we're just here to maybe give you a little bit of insight. So I think the first card that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to say that it's obvious choice. I don't know if it is or not, but the Fool card. So the Fool is 0. The Fool is basically every possibility is possible in the Fool. It's like all of the cards in the tarot are in the Fool card because it is the beginning. It is potential. Nothing has happened yet in the Fool, but everything is possible in the Fool card. So if you're at this place of thinking like, what is it that I want? Anything's possible in the Fool. So there's no dream that's too big that you can't act upon. The Fool is also about taking that leap of faith. A lot of times what holds us back from the things that we want to do is because we're afraid to do them. And it's easier for us to stay in our comfort zone and do the things that we always do that we're comfortable doing. They're predictable, rather than actually taking a leap of faith and being like, I have no idea where this is going to take me, but I'm just going to take that one step and then see where the next one leads. And with the Fool, you have this energy of potential, and you also have the support of the universe saying, take that leap. So I'm going to start you off with the Fool. And I think that's a really great card for anything is possible in the Fool. And all you have to do is just like, take take one step forward. That's all we're, and that could even just be, I want to make a change. I don't know what that change is. Pulling that Fool card is taking a step, is taking action to be like, I am open to possibility. I'm open to seeing what potential is out there for me.
Yeah, it is a card, isn't it, of absolute and utter potential of all possible pathways that, because I always think, that the fool is the path taker as well as the explorer before the explorer has gone on any kind of journey. So the number of paths that the fool can follow is
Infinite.
Infinite.
It could be intimate,
Could be
but
intimate as well, right?
infinite.
Is infinite.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what a great card. Mine probably follows a similar vein in the idea of just taking that leap of faith. I would probably start with the draw of the Wheel of Fortune, and it that with the similar intent, the idea of I'm open to what good fortune, because I always
Mhm.
want to try and set out good intention. And I think a card that's linked to Jupiter from an astrological perspective, that great, benefic card, that card of optimism, that card of positivity is a great way to start the year. But it also signals, in that good intention, in that energy I'm putting out there, I'm also open to what the universe is going to bring me this year. I'm open to the ideas of the ups and downs of what life is going to be like, and I'm going to handle this in my best, positive, most, I guess, beneficial mindset. So that's, if I was going to intentionally draw, and then I think about, the idea of when we talk about, Happy New Year, happy is the first word that we talk about, right? We want people to bring, joy and happiness. So I think that the happiness is a really good sort of underlying or undercurrent of the Wheel of Fortune card as well, because despite the fact that it is a card that says, yeah, I'm letting the universe, sort of guide me, it is also a card that is primarily a card of good fortune. So that's where
Mm.
I'd go to the wheel.
I love that. And I love this podcast because even
Me
in our
too.
even in our previous podcast, you brought a card to the table that I wouldn't have thought about, and I was like, oh yeah, like that's a great card to pull intentionally. And then you bring another card that I was like, oh, the Wheel of Fortune, what a great card that I wouldn't have thought of pulling intentionally. So I love that because I actually did pull the Wheel of Fortune intentionally for something that wasn't to do with New Year, but I see that card as the card of control, of letting go of control, right? It's like, and it ties in so beautifully with the New Year and setting an intention because it's about desires. Like it's okay to have a desire, but when you have that desire, it's okay to take action. But as soon as you try to control every little thing that's going to bring that action into reality for you, or how you're going to manifest that, that's where you're not allowing the Wheel of Fortune to spin. And that's the beauty of the Wheel of Fortune, to say, let go, let me do my thing
Right.
so I can bring this to you in a way that you never thought was possible.
Mhm.
I think that is a brilliant card to have at the beginning of a new year to help you set that intention. Again, not to say not to take action, but
Right.
don't rely so much on trying to control everything and allow the universe to bring it to you. Be welcome to receiving. So thank you. I'm
Oh,
totally using.
good. It's a good card to use in conjunction with another card as well, because it
Mm,
signals I have some things that I want to manifest. So some of the other cards that we are going to talk about, the Fool would be, one example, but we throw out a few more. But using the Wheel of Fortune says, yeah, this is kind of an energy I'm looking to manifest. And I recognize, exactly as you said, that I can't control everything. So I'm putting this out there, and I'm recognizing that the universe is going to put some stuff out there for me too. And I'm open to
mhm.
both of those things. So
Yeah. Like I'm fired up now. That's so
good.
good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good. Glad we can fire people up.
Yes. Okay. So next on the list, I'm going to use two cards
Yeah.
together. So because again, the beginning of the new year, we often think about maybe there's something that you want to start, like something creative. So when I think about creativity, I think about the Empress. So the Empress is the epitome of creativity. So kind of like the Fool, where everything is possible in the Fool card, the Empress says, I can create anything that I want to create. It is within me. So it is this infinite potential of creation. So that can help you with creative ideas or, planning. But with the Empress, it would be useful to pull the Emperor, because what the Emperor does, the Empress has all these infinite. So I'm like Empress energy. I have a million ideas of things that I want to do, but I need to pull Emperor energy to give me that container to actually make that idea a reality. So, like, putting boundaries around it, routines, having a plan, all of those things. So if you need some creativity and you want to make something happen, pulling the Empress is really important. And I would also pull the Emperor to use both of those energies together to actually create this force that's actually going to bring it into reality, right? Like, that's going to sort of give you those boundaries and those plans to make it happen. So that's
I love that. And you're bringing together, what really essentially is, an earthly or a manifestation team of the tarot, right? That Empress Emperor pair, with one being about, abundance, creativity, fecundity, and the other one, big idea, Emperor, make it happen, right? One is let me plant that seed, let me get things going. The Emperor would be, all right, let me work to harvest that. Let me use my Aries, I am energy. Let me use that Mars action that, kind of rules Aries. Let me do that kind of stuff. I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, like the Empress is like, this is the house I want to build.
Yeah.
And the Emperor's like, let me build that house for you.
Totally.
Or, get the things in place so that we can build
So
that.
funny that you mentioned that, because my favorite deck, or one of my favorite decks, the Gaian Tarot, actually the Empress is the gardener and the Emperor is the builder. Right. And it's actually it's the Emperor is there, building a house. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because that's exactly what they're building. They're standing there building a house. So great energy for the Emperor
Interesting.
as well. Okay. Now you use 2 cards. So I'm using 8 then.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I'm going to use,
I'm going to raise your 2 cards.
2 cards. I'm going to use two, I'll call them values or ranks. So I always think we talk about that idea of beginning or potential energy. And then I think, well, we have cards that deal with beginnings quite well. We have all the aces that happen to be in whatever suit, which is often, it's almost like the Fool light, whereas the Fool is all things potential. The ace is the potential of the suit itself. So it's the seed being planted inside the realm of, pentacles, swords, cups, and wands. So the ace is a great card. So, the ace of cups, for example, if what you're trying to look at, what you're trying to do is manifest that seed of intuition, or the seed of vulnerability, or the seed of emotion. Maybe it is looking to plant the seed of a new relationship. You're pulling that card intentionally. So when I think you're trying to draw the energy itself, the ace is a great card to pull intentionally. The other starting card, the beginning cards we have, are the pages. And the pages are role oriented to me. They're masks that we put on. They're things that we are looking to do. I guess we could put it out to manifest what other people could do, but really, when we put stuff out there, we really are trying to put it out there. Like, the only thing we can change is ourselves when we think about it. So a page is a great action-oriented card if we're looking to start taking an action. So as another example, if, I had decided in the new year I wanted to start a new routine, that I thought routines were important to me. I wanted to look at a health routine, or a morning meditation routine, or a journaling routine, and I wanted to put that energy out there. Page of Pentacles would be a great page to put out. If I was looking to do all the things that I needed, I used the example of Ace of Cups for relationship. And if I was like, okay, but what I want to do is I want to put myself out there and follow the steps I need to find a new relationship. Page of Cups is a great card to put out there, because pages are role oriented. They're things that we take on ourselves, as all the courts are. So that's, I would look at aces if we're looking to manifest that seed energy, the potential of the particular suit. Page if we're looking for an action-oriented or role-oriented start again for an idea. That's so you went two cards. I raised you two and went eight. Well, I really went two groups of cards. So
Yes.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you gave us lots of options. Yeah, I love that idea. And I would 100% agree with you in terms of using like pulling those cards intentionally when you're starting something new. And for sure, like the ace is the potential
Mhm.
of whatever it is that you want to bring into your reality based on that suit. And then the page, I find the page energy is that curiosity, right?
Mhm.
Like the potential is available in the ace, and then the page is really about like taking that step and being curious.
Mhm.
And the pages are brave too, especially the page of wands, right? They're like, yeah, I want to go do that thing. I'm going to go do it. So bringing that energy into it, I also think is really important. And also coming at it from a playful energy. I have to remind myself about this all the time. So I really welcome pages in my readings because life doesn't have to be so serious, Bonnie. And pages bring that playful side of things, of that. Oh, there's something I want to start. I'm curious about this thing. Okay, I'm going to go and do it. I'm going to look for the signs. I'm going to go buy that book or call that person or take that course. Like, that's really yeah, again, taking action on what it is that you want to do. So thank you for bringing those
Yeah, but you reminded
insight.
us though that element of curiosity and almost that childlike energy that the page brings in is really important to starting something, right? Because regardless of the action we're taking, we're starting something new. So having
Mhm.
that mindset of openness and of curiosity and perhaps of a little bit of bravery to sort of take that first step really does help. The page helps manifest all of that, all of those action oriented energies. So no, that's great. So lots of ideas for people right now.
Yeah, and to have fun with it, right?
Yes,
And to
fun.
be excited about it, right? Like, and again, it brings us back to this idea. Why is it that you want something? Or why is it that you want to do something? Like, what is the driving force behind that? Is it because you think you have to have that thing, or because that's exciting for you?
Right.
That brings a very different energy.
Yeah,
So,
totally. All right. Look at
yeah.
that. Lots of what did we cover? A dozen cards or more. And as Bonnie had mentioned, I think early on that really any card, any card that you feel brings the kind of energy that you're looking to manifest in a new year is one that you can bring forward. Maybe what we've given you are ideas on how to pair some of those cards up, or maybe we've given you some ideas on how to think a little bit differently with some of those cards too. But again, right, that this time of year, really, I'd say the sky's the limit. You've got 78 possibilities in a tarot deck that you can draw to be able to manifest. So, we
Mhm.
wish you well when you go and do that. We hope that you change a practice, or you've added a tarot practice for your intentional card pull with 2025 just around the corner.
Mhm.
All right. Shall we go
All
from
right.
cards to spreads for the new year? Okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Do you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I'll,
Okay.
I'll go. I think
Okay, you go first.
I think you started us because we looked our last episode. For those of you who missed it, we looked at kind of, I guess, holiday based spreads. So we were looking at ways that we can sort of combat that what might be stressful energy or overwhelming energy of the holiday time. So if you missed that episode, please go back and visit it. And I think you started us off. So I'll happily start us off. I'll happily start us off here. So um, the spread that I use is actually one that I've developed. And interestingly enough, I've actually developed a course around this spread. It's a comprehensive, I'll say 2 layer, but almost 3 layer spread that I've simply just called the year ahead spread. And what this spread has is a series of paths that you look to follow at the year level, at the month level, and for those that are kind of astrologically inclined at the decanic level, which is an astrological division that represents just about 10 days. Now, I'm not going to go into that kind of detail. For one, it wouldn't be fair to the students who've enrolled in my class. Two, the class itself covers, is 3 lessons of 90 minutes plus a bunch of Q&A. So we'd be here for a long time. But what I am going to do is I'm going to kind of lay out what, what the year ahead spread, what the annual path looks like. So Um, the annual path starts with a pre-selected card. So it starts with the card of the year, which for 2025 is the Hermit card. So for those of you that are unaware, there's a way to be able to determine a card for each year. It's done numerologically. 2025, we would just add the digits up, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5, which gives us 9, which gives us the card of the Hermit. So we talked about 2024 as the year of strength. 2025 is the year of the Hermit. So this spread would start out with a pre-selected card, which would be the card of the Hermit, which would be sort of the filter through which every other card is examined. That idea of introspection, that idea of, of that solo look inside. It might be the idea of selected solitude. Although, every card doesn't represent that. The year itself has that filter through which we look at. And then there's a second pre-selected card, which is actually somebody's personal card of the year. And those cards go together to sort of create, say a filter or a blanket that governs the entire annual path. So 2 pre-selected cards. And then what we simply do for the annual path is we draw a series of cards that outline the path. Card 1 represents the start of our path. Card 2 represents the end of our path. And then I'll say X number of cards represent sort of the middle of our path. And what I've always suggested to students is that we could do a 1-card path, a 3-card path, or a 5-card path. So it would mean there are 3 cards in total with a 1-card path. So start, step 1, end. 5 cards in total with a 3-card path. Start, step 1, 2, and 3, and end. And 7 cards in total with a 5-card path. Start, steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and end. And then really, how I use this spread is I take a look at the start card, I take a look at the steps that are in the path, and I take a look at the end card and create sort of a narrative flow as to what the energy is going to look like for that year. And I find that it's really helpful to almost give an overview of what a general narrative for the year might be. Are we going to encounter kind of easy flow? Will we look at sort of, stops and starts? Are there particular challenges that would come up? We look at the interpretation of major cards as signposts that say, hey, look at me. A major arcana card that shows up is kind of like a card doing jumping jacks and saying, look, this is a really important energy that you need over that annual path. So we take a look at a variety of things, and it's one that I've already done. If you took a look, if you watched our last episode Over My Shoulder, you would have seen the Lover's card, which is the card that represented my 2025, my personal card. Now it's the Queen of Pentacles because, that's the cooking holiday in the kitchen. Once again, I'll point you to the last episode, to episode 30. So I'll say that's the annual path in a nutshell. It's really intended to provide an overview of, what I'll call the narrative flow or the narrative energy of the entire year of 2025. So kind of big idea, reflective questions that can guide us over the course, of a year. Go figure. I went with something that's big idea, big concept, very heady. That should really surprise you and the people who've been listening to our podcast for a while.
You have great ideas, Peter, and really deep insight. So I think we can all appreciate that. Yes.
All right.
That sounds amazing. I'm totally going to do that. I think that's fantastic. And that'll offer a lot of insight, especially on the steps in between to take. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And how about you? What are you going to share with us for, something to sort of start the year?
You should have let me go first because now I'm like, wah, wah.
No wah, wah. Come on.
Mine is very, it's much shorter and, yeah, okay, I'll just share it. Yeah. And, it's a 4-card spread. It's quite simple, but I think it can be quite effective as well. And, again, you can sort of use this in different parts of the year. You don't have to wait until the beginning of a new year to figure out at any point in the year, like what you can learn from the past year in general. So this doesn't have to be done in January. This can sort of be done at any point. But I've called the spread New Year, New You. And it's a 4 card spread. So you could do the first 2 cards and then the second 2 cards, sort of like a square. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll have this on my website in my blog available. So you can go back and look at what the cards mean. So first card, card number 1. What have I learned from the past year? I think that's a great reflection because sometimes, again, we think consciously of like, oh, yeah, that's what I learned. And then a card will come up and you're like, oh, right. Okay, now I get it. So, again, the tarot has this way of helping us to see things differently and to sort of bring things up from a deeper place, maybe. It could be completely conscious. You'd be like, yeah, that's exactly what I learned. But again, we might be surprised at what comes up. Okay, so next card, card number 2. What am I being invited to let go of in 2024? If you're not doing this in January, you're doing this another time. What am I being invited to let go of from this past year? Again, that can be really insightful because it's like you may have learned a lesson. Now it's time to move on from that. I did this spread for myself, and the card that came up, I was like, really? Like, again, you think that that's going to be a negative card. It was a very positive card that came up for me. And I thought, well, why am I being invited to let that go? So you can look at this as blocked energy. So if you're pulling a card for this and it's something that's really positive, let's say it's the Sun card, and you're like, well, why would I be encouraged to let go of the Sun card from the past year? It could be that you were maybe blocking what the energy of that Sun card actually means. So letting go of blocking that so that you can move forward. So that's the advice I'll help you. I don't read reversals, but I often put challenging cards in my spread so that I can see that as something that I need to work with. Card number 3, what can I welcome as I move into the new year? So again, something that I can welcome. And then card 4 is how can I nurture my personal growth in 2025? So nurturing, compassion, those are really big ideas for me that I work with a lot for myself. So I think that that's always important for me to have in a spread. So yeah, again, what can nurture your personal growth? A lot of times too, this time of year, we think about things like achievements that we want to do, or like, oh, I'm finally going to do that thing. And why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to do something? And maybe we're chasing the wrong thing. Maybe we just want to feel a little more peace in our lives, or maybe we just want to feel a little more freedom, or maybe like the pages, we just want to have a little more joy in our life. So helping us to see that intention as opposed to like giving ourselves these goals that, have been in our New Year's resolution list for the past 10, 15 years, and nothing's ever happened. Well, that has to tell you something. Maybe we're going about it from the wrong way. So I think the tarot is a really wonderful way to help us see things that we don't normally look at in a certain way. So that would be my spread to use for the beginning of the new year. It's pretty simple, but I think it can be quite insightful. So
yeah, but and again, though, so thank you for sharing that, because sometimes simple can be very effective, and we sort of shared, 2 different but equally effective spreads. And what I love about yours is there's that question. The one thing actually that's lacking from the one that I shared is that you had that reflective piece. You've got those 2 cards that are focused on the year past and 2 cards that are focused on the year ahead. So there really is, I know in past episodes you talked about the importance of temperance as a card for you, and that kind of shows up in this, right? It's like I've got 2 cards where I'm like, okay, I have lessons to learn from the year that is almost ending. If you're doing this at the end of December, if you're doing it in January, that's ended, and then you really do have those lessons to bring in. And the questions, I know you said simple, but I would say, they're questions that everybody thinks about from time to time. It's like when we say, oh, I'm going to make a New Year's resolution, your cards 3 and 4 are really representing, well, what do I need to do? Like what am I going to resolve? Like what am I making a covenant with myself? So not all work has to go, I had to go deep here. We've given you two different, quite different options where, one is pretty heady and philosophical and one asks some really practical questions. So, both, excuse me, both very effective. So thank you for sharing that. That's one of those things too, where I think, when you're just looking as well for quick guidance to go right to. So I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna use it.
We'll have to do a debrief and
We
let
will.
us know
We
what
will.
each other got for our
There you go. That could be an episode topic for sometime in January where we're sharing we're sharing the work. As a matter of fact, that's in the course that I just did. I used my own annual spread as an example. So I kind of, in general terms, deciphered what my annual path was for the students that were in that class. So if you sign up, then, you get a sense as to what 2025. I went vulnerable. I went hangman style and decided that, I was going to share. So no, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. They're great questions, great pensive questions. So
Well, and thank you for sharing your vulnerability about what you did because I've been learning a lot lately that when we hide parts of ourselves that we're afraid to bring out into the light because of fear of judgment or criticism or whatever that is, it has so much control over us. And then
right.
when we actually are vulnerable in your sense and you showed all of your students your path and you're like, oh, that's being vulnerable. So that takes away the power of what that was holding for you,
Right.
right? So I think for me 2025 is really going to be about showing vulnerability and knowing that we learn from other people's stories and we learn that we're not doing this all by ourselves. Like your path may be very similar to what somebody else is going through and they could be like, oh, that's interesting, Peter's
Mhm.
going through the same thing or those same challenges are coming up for him or like I think there's so much power in sharing our
Agreed.
vulnerabilities and moving forward even though we're afraid to shine a light on that. So thank you for sharing that, and that's just a little aside.
Well, thank you. All right. We have to draw
Okay.
cards though, right? I think we're at that point.
We're
Okay.
at that point. Yes.
All right.
I have my card ready because I was shuffling earlier
Okay.
and the card jumped out and I
Okay.
was like, okay, Bonnie, just honor the card.
Well, you start. And what I'll do actually is I'm going to mute my microphone. If I forget to unmute it, let me know. I'm going to mute my
Okay.
microphone while you're sharing your card so that you don't hear the sound of my shuffling in my mic. No. All right.
Okay. I am using the Dreamkeepers Tarot by Liz Houston. I've talked about this deck many times on our show and I love it. Okay, so the reason it's funny that we're talking about vulnerability and then this card showed up for me. So I pulled the Lovers card. So in this deck, it's a very dream-like quality to it. If you're watching, you can see it. If you're listening, it's kind of hard for me to explain. So I would say go see a picture of this card somewhere. But it has two people. Was probably a man and a woman, and their heads are sort of separated from their bodies. It's not grotesque or anything. It's just like in this dreamy like scape. So now what's interesting about me pulling this card is that I did this New Year spread, New Year, New You spread for myself. And the card that I got from what have I learned from the past year was the Lovers. And then that Lovers card jumped out when I was shuffling. So I'm like, okay, so maybe this is an opportunity for me to be vulnerable with everybody. So what does the Lovers card mean for me and how did it help me in the past year? What I think about the Lovers card, I think about a choice, right? So often we think about love and our soulmate and our partner, like a really meaningful, deep relationship. It doesn't always have to be romantic. It can be a business partner, a friend. But it's also about choices too. But the underlying message for me in this card is our relationship with ourself. We tie so much to relationships with other people and choices that we make because of those relationships. And quite often we abandon our own relationship with ourself. And the only way that we can really have meaningful relationships with other people is when we have that with ourselves. So if I truly am going to love you, how can I truly love you if I truly don't love myself? Like I'm just acting in a sense. And that can be hard to hear because a lot of people don't really have a great relationship with themselves, but they'll be like, oh my gosh, I love my husband and I love my kids and I'll do anything for them. Okay, but you also have to love yourself so you can show them how important it is to have that relationship with you. It's like putting on the mask, right? Like we all know when you get on a plane, you put your mask on first, then you put the mask on for people that you're there with helping. So this is really about me stepping into this world of really developing a relationship with myself, making choices that align with helping me to love and accept who I am so that I can have better relationships with my husband, with my kids, with other people in my life. And it really benefits everybody. So while there's choices in this card, it's also about the relationships that we have and the relationship with the self. So there's my vulnerability.
No,
And it's funny that I shared the spread, and that was the first card in my spread, and then that was the card that jumped out. Again, we can't make this stuff up. I'll say that every time in tarot, cards that keep showing up or messages, like you really can't make it up if you tried.
no. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you for being vulnerable. The idea, and we often think about the Lover's card as that idea of choice or that idea of love, because of the name of the card. And I always remind people when that Lover's card comes up is it's a card of duality. And we are often always focused on the other in duality, but we are equal in that pairing. So if we're talking about the concept of love, as underlined in the Lover's card, because that's, one of several interpretations, we forget that love actually happens both outwardly and inwardly. If we're in a relationship, we're expressing love to somebody else, but we're also expressing it to ourselves, right? So we always want to focus on the other, and we forget that and to somebody else we are the other as well. So that's a really, really astute observation about the Lover's card. So thank you for sharing that. I'd have nothing to add from an interpretation perspective. I will just add one thing, because we talk about the card of the Lovers, and you would think from an astrological perspective, well, it'd be connected to Venus or to something love, but it's not. It's connected to Gemini. So it's connected to that concept of duality, and sometimes even that concept of communication being critical, Gemini being, that concept of talkative and communication, and actually being ruled by Mercury, so it's not necessarily the concept of romantic love as much as it is that concept of connecting to something or someone else. So
Mhm. And it's funny because my husband is a Gemini.
so there you go. Right there you
So
go.
it's, yeah, exactly. It has even more insights for me from that perspective.
Perfect. Okay.
So did you pull a card,
I
Peter?
did. We actually both drew major arcana cards. So mine is not quite as let me say supportive of
Oh
as the
no.
Lovers is, but it is one of my favorite cards in the tarot. Now, I don't know, again, I don't know if I have pulled this before. I pulled the Tower. Now, I pulled
I
it from the
knew
This
it.
Might, yeah, I pulled it from the This Might Hurt deck from Isabella Rotman. And I think I've mentioned before that I do quite like this card. And,
Mhm.
so I'll talk a little bit about this card, in the way of, well, what happens when we get a challenging card like the Tower? And we're talking about the idea of, of a new year. Bonnie, your spread was entitled New Year, New You. And I think when we get a card like the Tower, sometimes it's an invitation to check the solidity of our foundations, check the things that are grounding us, that are, keeping us anchored, and whether or not they're solid enough, or whether or not we have to prepare to knock something over, or whether or not something has to come down, or something is going to come down whether we want it or not, because it no longer serves us.
Mhm.
I always think when we see the tower card, something is going to be eliminated. But then the reason I like this card is because often what happens is other cards help us rebuild something that is bigger and stronger, right? Like
Mhm.
I've talked about the astrology of the Lovers card. I'll talk about the astrology of this one. This is Mars's card. So, there's some fight in this card, right? Mars is the god of war. So sometimes again, when when something is torn down, it's causing us to move forward. It's causing us to direct ourselves. It's causing us to take action. Um, and we've got a lightning bolt here, so sometimes that action needs to be taken quickly. Sometimes it might be taken quickly against us. But I often think that this is a card that is a signal to us that either A, something that we thought was supporting us, something we thought was foundational, is actually not on as solid ground as we think, or
Mhm.
B, it's an invitation to take something down, to eliminate something, to crash it to the ground so that it can be rebuilt better and stronger. So, what about you, Bonnie? I know you knew when I said, because I actually have a
Yeah.
T-shirt that has the
Yes.
tower on it. Now the card is called Coffee and not Tower, but I always say, and I know Megan, who is the co-owner of our kind of favorite local tarot friendly store. We're both fans. We're both fans of this card. So, what about you as far as the tower goes?
Yes. Well, thank you for that interpretation. It was insightful and yeah, again, I agree with everything that you said. And I do agree with the tower. Uh, it doesn't scare me like it scares other people. I find the tower as an invitation to get out of your comfort zone. So we talked about this in a previous episode when we were talking about the sevens, and the tower adds up to seven. So 1 + 6
Right.
is seven. And for me, this card is the hiding card. It's like, ooh, and I'm going to bring it back to vulnerability. I don't know why. Like, I don't know anybody that's listening that needs to be vulnerable. This is a message for you too. But it's like the tower keeps you safe because you're in this tower, but the lightning bolt is coming and now it's forcing you out of the tower. It's forcing you to come out of your comfort zone, and it's forcing you maybe to be vulnerable. For me, that's what it is. It's forcing me to stop hiding and to come out of this place that I think is secure. So, and that could be in my mind, like, oh, if I stay in my comfort zone, I'm very comfortable here. It's predictable, but if I come out of this place, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And that's basically the tower. So it's breaking something down to rebuild it on a solid foundation, because those thoughts that you have, they weren't built on anything that's stable. They're built on fear. They're built on insecurities, if you're looking at it from that perspective. So I do think the tower is a really great opportunity to be like, something that you're doing that's not helping you, and either you can make the decision to come out of that comfort zone, or something's going to happen that's going to force you out, and it's giving you, not fair warning, but yeah. So I do think the tower is a powerful card to really help us examine where we are and what's not really serving us, so that we can build something that's much stronger.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point, right? The tower is an invitation, and if we want to tear something down, great. But the tower is something that's saying, look, you have the ability to be able to act, use that Mars energy, tear it down. Because if you don't, I'm likely, the universe is saying, I'm likely to throw you a lightning bolt and I'm going to tear it down whether you like it or not. I'm going to put you out of that comfort zone of yours, and you're going to have to rebuild something because this no longer serves you. So,
Yeah, and you can think about too, like the lightning bolt, right? It's like hitting the tower,
Mhm.
and I think there's like a crown, right, on top of the tower that's being
Yeah,
knocked
in
off.
the Rider-Waite-Smith, there is. I'm looking. There isn't in this one, and there isn't in every iteration. But yeah, for sure, there's that concept of crown that's there as
Right.
well.
Yeah, so it's like this aha moment. It's
Mhm.
also like this awakening, like, oh my God, that's not serving me. So it can be as literal as like this new idea that's emerging that literally just hit you like a lightning bolt in the crown, right? Like when you think about information coming down, spiritual coming through the crown, it is
Mhm.
it's exciting
Yes.
because it can bring you a lot of awareness and inspiration that you maybe didn't have before. So
Yeah. And then the other interpretation too is the idea of knocking that crown. If we knock a crown off of someone's head, we're removing them from what is a position of power and placing them again in a position of non-power. We're taking them from that
mm,
tower on high and we are making them vulnerable. We are removing that which protected them. They were inside this safe tower and now they're not. So lots of really good imagery that we've talked about today in all our cards. Lots of insight and vulnerability in the lovers and the tower, and two major cards too, right? So lots of food for thought there. Okay.
exactly.
So if people were going to find out what you're up to or just connect with you, Bonnie, where might they do that?
Ah, they can go to my website, which is breathewithbonnie.com. So if you'd like to book a reading with me, a private meditation session, or you're having an event and you want to have a reader there, I'm definitely available for that. So all the things that I do are on my website. You can also follow me on Instagram at Breathe with Bonnie, but I update my website more often than going on Instagram. So that's where you can find me. How about you, Peter? Where can people find you?
Well, Peter White Tarot on my social. So that's Instagram or Facebook, peterwhitetarot.com on my website. It'd be a great place to go if you're looking for more information on the either annual, monthly, or decanic path. So that's that year ahead spread. The other thing is, so that would be under the courses page. But I always think the start of the new year is a great time to get a tarot consultation. So if you're looking to work with me on the tarot, then by all means, write to the website. Head to my consultation page. I will state as well that January 2025 is going to be a time where I slightly increase the cost of my consultation time. So, if you're listening to this right now before that time, run on over to the website and book at 2024 at current prices. So that's what I've got. And with that, what we want to do is we want to wish you all the best in the upcoming year, all the best in 2025. Wish you a happy holiday. If you like what you hear, if you like what you hear here, then please, by all means, like, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and share with others. We really do feel passionate about the tarot, and one of the reasons why we've done this podcast is so that we can share the tarot with other people. So, a nice 5-star review or a share with people who you think would be very appreciated from us, and we would come at that action with some great gratitude. And on that note, I think what we will say is, thank you for joining Bonnie and I. Thank you for coming to Tarot with Bonnie and Peter, and so long.
See you next time.